2000 528i E39 chassis. So doing the front struts, there's other tutorials you can watch that are probably a lot, well, there will be a lot more in depth than mine. I'm just doing tips. A couple of the things that I have learned here, and I've already done the passenger side, is some of these videos, or maybe your experiences, well, when I'm taking the strut out of the sleeve down here on the steering knuckle or the spindle or whatever you want to call it, all I had to do was just took out that bolt down there at the bottom and the strut just slid right out. Well, on the passenger side, I had to spread it a little bit with a crowbar, but on this driver's side, I had to wedge a chisel down in here and then beat with a sledgehammer on the bottom of the spring perch to get this thing out. It took quite a while. It just is what it is sometimes. You're going to have to do it as your situation dictates. One of the other things I have learned is, and not that I need to watch the other videos, but sometimes you watch them just to see what everybody else is doing. And I see guys doing I'm not taking any of the control linkage off, none of the control arms or the tie rod or even the brake caliper, which boggles my mind. And then they just step on the rotor, push this whole thing out from under the lip of the fender, and you can see the brake hose on some of those videos. Like, it is stretched to the max because it's still on here. Man, just take off the brake caliper and set it to the side. I just use a jack stand and get it out of the way. I also take off the tie rod. And on this one, you can see there, I've taken it all the way off the inner because it was worn. But at a minimum, I would pop it out of the knuckle down here and get it out of the way so you can rotate this thing. Well, you can rotate this whole knuckle left and right as you need to. Which brings me to another point. If your tie rods have been on for a very long time, when you take them off, the inner sleeve is probably going to come off with it. Not a huge deal, don't panic, but you are going to have a vise or something. I'm going to use a little heat on that sleeve right there in the center. So you know what I'm talking about. This thing right here actually goes back into the knuckle because the new tie rod does not come with that. So I'm going to use a little heat on it with a torch and see if I can get some vice grips on this edge here and just kind of twist it off, or maybe pound the end of the tie rod out through it. Don't get me started on spring compressors. Okay, now to get that stupid ass sleeve off of the tie rod end. You can see it's still smoking there. I had to use a significant amount of heat and a little creative hammering. What I use for heat, and this is not cheap, but I have something called the bolt buster, which is inductive heat, and you just simply slide that baby in there and you hit the button, and it uses inductions of electricity to heat up the part you're working on. And then from there, what I did, here, I'll show you. Okay, and then from there what I did is I slid my pickle fork underneath that, in between that and the ball joint, and then that stud would have been popped way through the center at that point, and I just hammered on that stud with a 3-pound sledge until it popped down through. So just kind of used my vise as I don't know, arbor plates. I don't know. It's not good on the Oshville, but anyway, that's how I broke that loose. And I'll let it cool down, and I'll just hit it with a little sandpaper and smooth up those edges, and we'll pound that stupid thing back in the spindle. So now, spring compressors. When you use these things, some people I've seen do it in some of the videos. The guys got their face all in front of this stuff. They've got their hands inside here when they're, using an impact on these things. Man, you just can't do that, because if you've never had one of these slip around and meet the other one unexpectedly because you don't have the tension quite right on them, you don't know how scary that is. I've never had one of these break, but I have had them slip around, and I've been doing this a while. didn't think that was a thing I needed to worry about. I know even tension, but some of them, they just get you. Okay, I never use an impact on them. I always use just a 1/2-inch ratchet. I am going to use an impact on this though. If this is your first time compressing springs, you're going to have to compress them a lot more than you think you're going to have to in order to, maybe not to disassemble this, but get the new one together. So the way I kind of check it is, and I'm pretty close to the end of my ability to compress here anyway, but what I'm going to do is loosen this nut up, and if I've got it compressed enough, by the time I get that nut out to the end of these threads, I should have some play in this strut mount. If I don't have any play, if that nut is still tight against the mount, then I know I'm going to have to tighten these down some more. Yeah, it's not an impact socket, I don't care. And of course, it's going to spin on me. Okay, so here's what I do for this when the impact is not working right. In this case, it's a 21mm socket that goes on this nut. Okay, and I just put vice grips on it. Throw the appropriate size Allen key in there, and then hold the Allen, and then just push down with the vice grips. Just they make special sockets just for this that have flats on them, so you can put a wrench on it and do whatever. But my experience shows that these nuts usually aren't that tight. See, I'm spinning it there. That's what I do for that. And here I've got it backed out almost to the end of the threads, and I've got a little wiggle, but that might be in the mount itself. I'd rather see a little more play, so I'm going to go ahead and try to tighten these the rest of the way down. Then I'll take this off, and hopefully it'll be compressed enough to get everything back together. It's actually a little easier on the car. So take your 22, set it over, slide your whatever 6mm I think it is in there. So what I do is take a crescent wrench, put it on the end of the Allen wrench, and then I'll use that to hold it while I tighten it up with the vice grips. And just move your vice grips. And just keep tightening. And basically with this method, I go until I can't tighten it anymore. And I figure that's good, okay? Now, with this car, putting the strut back into the holder down here, into the knuckle. Again, pain on this driver's side. I had to take that chisel and wedge it in the slot back there, and then I could muscle the strut back down into that holder. I don't know why the passenger side wasn't like that, but the driver's side is. Okay, you shouldn't see any gap when you're done between this top of this mount and the actual strut body itself. Or, you can see there's like a slight gap, if you will, there, but that's just because the top of this strut is like chamfered. Okay, if you see a gap, you don't want that. You need to tighten that top nut down more, because if you don't, you're going to hear clunking as you're driving it around. It's going to drive fine, but it's going to clunk. It's going to drive you crazy. All right, so that's what you're looking for at the end. And I don't care how many videos you watch, who you think has done it right. Everybody has a different idea on how these dumb bump stops go on here. I've got one on the, it's got the angled, the chamfered side again, angled up on the passenger side, and I've got this one chamfered side pointed down. I'm just going to see if it makes any difference, and I'm pretty sure it doesn't, because I've done these quite a few times, but pick your poison, doesn't matter.